call the executive cabinet meeting for the Board of County Commissioners to order for Monday, August 31st. Let the record reflect that we have all three commissioners present. And the first item of business is Mr. Cook. So it's all yours, Kevin.
Thank you and good morning. I have several things to go over with the board this morning by way of keeping you up to date on all things environmental services. The first item, I have Mike Hermanson and Rob Lindsay and Shannon Berkey here with me to talk about a new department within the general fund that we've set up specifically for the plan implementation activities in WIRA 55. And I think we've told the board before that we anticipate some pretty substantial grants from Department of Ecology for the capital cost of putting some of these projects in place. The tricky part is the operation and maintenance portion, which is not a huge cost, but we cannot use the capital grants for that purpose. I'm going to let Mike give you an overview of what our approach to this is. Mike?
Thanks.
And, Gina, I think, has some materials for us, including a slide. This one. Yes, thank you.
Yep. So this page kind of details what the purpose of the department was, like Kevin mentioned. It would be to implement the WIRA 55 watershed plan addendum, which we are on track to have local approval and ecology adoption within the next few months. We've just finished most of the planning and everything, and now we're just going to be going through the approval process at each of the initiating governments. This fund would be used to provide funds for activities, like Kevin said, that are not covered under the capital grants that we were able to get. We have in our plan stated that we are interested in going to or asking the legislature for money to operate all of these stream flow projects, and there seems to be a move in many of the watersheds that are hoping to see this happen. Although we're not too hopeful that it's going to occur, especially in the short term, that they're going to add new funding for operations at this point. So this would be used for developing the projects for grant funding. This is, an activity that we were able to cover under our planning grant this past year, but it takes some significant time to develop these projects so that they're ready to go on grants, as far as getting the property together, doing the preliminary analysis. The next thing would be stream flow monitoring. We actually need the stream flow data to be able to put together applications for these projects, mostly the managed aquifer recharge projects, but also the Aloika Lake project. Groundwater modeling and hydrogeologic analysis would be in support of new grant applications. And then also doing some reporting on the plan implementation. Our plan includes a component where we would evaluate how many wells have actually gone in and what water offset projects are in place. Water conservation, we ended up adding a small water conservation component to the plan so that the city of Spokane would be on board. And this is a pretty minimal effort, we think, but it will cost a little bit of money to do that. And then we have just any of the interagency and public coordination and communication. And this involves seeing what other entities are doing as far as implementing this plan and documenting it. And then we have the last item, as Kevin mentioned, managed aquifer recharge operation and maintenance. This piece would not come into play until we actually have one of the projects built. So probably 2022. But it would be, what we're envisioning would be covered out of this fund.
Mike, would you also talk a little to the idea of redirecting some of the fees that ecology is currently collecting and redirecting those into a better use?
Yeah, we have in the plan have identified that we would like to see the $350 portion of the $500 fee that is charged to actually be directed back to the county. The law requires actually that the money that is generated in a watershed to be spent in the watershed. From what I have heard, ecology is kind of directing this back into their general stream flow restoration plan, and they're pretty tight-lipped about what's actually happening with this money. They've said in the past that they were going to provide some information about what's happening with these funds, but we have not heard anything. We continue in our communication with ecology staff to advocate that this money should actually come back to the counties to implement these plans, but have not received much information as to how these funds are being spent.
So we're not asking for any board action at this juncture, other than we wanted to let you know that we have this ask in the budget for $30,000 for this. I guess you could call it seed money for this new department and these activities for 2021. And so more a matter of just wanting to make sure you understood what we were hoping to accomplish in that regard. Any questions from the board?
Questions, Josh or Mary? No, we're good.
Very good. Thank you very much. The next item that I wanted to bring to the board's attention has to do with the Peone Pines treatment plant. And I have Louis Graff on the line, or has joined us. And first, there's a vicinity map. Gina, if you can locate that. I don't know if you're, there it is. So the Peone Pines treatment plant was put in place as a satellite system back in the 70s. And it's basically an extended aeration plant with subsurface disposal. And it serves a number of homes. Do you recall, Louis, what the number of homes is that is served by that system?
I think it's 78 homes, somewhere in that range.
I wanted to say 70, so I think that's correct. And we are happily proceeding with the abandonment of that plant this year. As you know, we've built the system, the Meade Mount Spokane system out to that area, and we are currently building the force main that will redirect the flows from the pump station that has been pumping the flow to that facility. That pump station will now redirect the flow through a force main to our new system, and it will flow into the regional system. So we're very happy to be taking that satellite system offline, and we will abandon that appropriately, and then we'll sell the underlying property. Well, the people that live around that site, and if we could move to that next slide, showing the detail of the facility, or the detail of the property there. The people, you can see there's a number of lots that have their back lot lines backed up against that piece of property. And they are, most of them are quite interested in having an easement across our property before we sell it. And that's understandable. But we explained to them that placing an easement on that property would result in a reduction in the value, and said, tell you what, if you really want to consider purchasing an easement, you can get together and hire an appropriate appraiser, and you can have an appraisal with and without the easement so that we can get the cost differential. And we would entertain providing that easement to your group of property owners at that cost, at the cost of the reduction in value of the property by virtue of the easement. So they went forward with that. They hired from the list of appraisers that we provided to them. They had a full-blown appraisal done with and without the easement on the property, and the differential is $21,000. And they just provided us with all the documentation, the appraisal report here within the last couple of weeks. And so I see that this is a pretty good approach to providing them with a reasonable access to the back lot lines in a way that that doesn't harm us. And so Lewis and I are inclined to move forward. But before we went any further, we wanted to bring the board up to speed on what we're doing out here. So does the board have any questions on this approach?
So Kevin, what's the purpose of the easement again?
The purpose of the easement is many of these people have shops and other outbuildings on the backs of their lots, and this is right now just an open area, although it does have our plant, which is a small package plant, and it's the whole area is pretty much covered with subsurface infiltrators. You know,
Yeah.
you've probably seen them, Commissioner, the half round style
Yeah,
subsurface drainage tiles.
right.
So it's really all about being able to get to their back lot lines with vehicles occasionally, and just provides them with more of an ability to use their back properties.
So it's not for the purposes of construction. It's just for the purposes of access.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions, either Mary or Josh? Mary?
I do. So just, because I've seen easements where people have then suddenly, like Commissioner French is saying, encroached and built and all of that. So I guess I would want to make sure that we're monitoring that to ensure that that's not happening. And so do you have a plan to do that?
Well, the easement would be written specifically to cover the allowable uses, and then what would likely happen next is we're going to put this property up for sale, and whoever buys it is going to develop it, and they would have the option of either using those existing those easement locations as, basically they would not be precluded from using those easement areas for traveled way, and they could certainly arrange with the lot owners, the perimeter lot owners, to make adjustments where they needed to facilitate their the way that they wanted to develop the property. So we would also include that in the easement language, that the owner would have the right to modify the easement, provided they did not preclude the uses that are afforded by the configuration of the easement.
Okay, so the intent is then to provide for this easement, and then your plan is to sell the rest of the property?
Yes, so we'd sell the whole piece.
Okay.
With the easement on it.
Thank you. Yeah, because I've just have seen where easements have been encroached on and all of that. So as long as we're going to be selling it, then that's not our problem any longer.
Right. All right. So as I said, we just, before this came before the board as a more of a formal document, and we wanted the board to understand what we're all about here. So
So Kevin, when you draft up that easement then, are you going to have language in there that allow the developer to interrupt the easement during construction?
Yes.
Okay. And so the drain field that's in there now, you will ultimately abandon that drain field?
That will be up to, yeah, it'll be abandoned, but we're not going to remove it. It's going to be up to the developer to
Right.
remove the portions that they need to remove for their development purposes.
So structurally, is that soil, since it's been used as a drain field for so long, do you think that soil is still
Competent?
has the characteristics for having construction on it?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
you bet.
Any other questions for Kevin on this one? All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Next.
The third item that I wanted to discuss with the board is that and this is just a heads up, if you will, that we have a developer agreement on the consent agenda tomorrow with Centennial Properties. And that is a fairly straightforward and typical approach where we allow a certain credit for public sewers that a developer has built. And as we collect our sewer collection charges that include a local construction component, we reimburse the developer for the cost of the facilities that he built up to the documented amount that he has spent. Certainly, they're not entitled to any more than they've spent on the subject facilities. But and in this case, I would guess that unless they get a wet industry out in this area, they're not going to recover all of what they've put into the sewer through this agreement. It's about it's a little over $500,000 that would be their maximum reimbursement amount, and that would be collected on an ERU basis, equivalent residential unit basis, from the businesses and companies that develop those properties. And this, I should have said at the outset, this is the new Garland Avenue that Centennial Properties has constructed between Flora and Barker, east of the Spokane Industrial Park. So, you know, it's great to see that area coming together in terms of some viable developable property, and they've got the sewer in, and they're pretty much ready to go. So this, as I said, is a fairly straightforward and standard response, standard approach to putting an agreement together of this kind, but I just wanted to let you know that it's on your agenda tomorrow.
Okay, any questions for Kevin on this one? Nope, looks like we're good.
And last but not least is the board will recall that we have waived our interest and penalties on sewer bills for 6 months now. We had a 3-month initial period, and we extended that for an additional 3 months. And August was the last month, which means that long about the end of September, we would assess those fees again unless we extend it. And I am proposing that we extend it. And I think we should just extend it to the end of the year. And this pairs up with the activities or the approach that other utilities have taken in light of the current circumstances. I would add, we haven't seen a dramatic reduction in our collections during this 6-month period. I don't think that we have that is to say, a large number of our customers that are taking advantage of this waiver, but I think it is a good thing to have it in place for those that do need it. So I'm proposing that I would bring a resolution to the board in all likelihood next week, that would extend that through the end of the year. Just wanted to make you aware of that.
Hey, Mary?
So Kevin, so how many of those are businesses versus residential units that are delaying in payments? Just trying to figure out areas that we know where need is.
And I don't have data to that level, Commissioner CUNY. I just know that we're not seeing a marked reduction in the amount of revenue that's coming in, but I don't have it broken down by category or any level of detail that I could provide an answer.
Is there a way to kind of to find that out? Just commercial versus residential, or
I'm going to ask Shannon if she has any thoughts on that.
Yes, there is. I've actually been trying to get to that this last week. We just haven't been able to get accurate data out of HMS to get that. I should have it today. So I should be able to provide it to Kevin so he can have it for you next week if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I just think, like I said, I know, just from our Hutton side on commercial properties, there's definitely some businesses that are hurting and aren't going to be continuing probably, and so seeing that and probably just curious on the residential side, because as we've done rent assistance and look at that, we haven't looked at mortgage assistance, and so seeing if this would be a measurement to see where potential needs are. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Josh, you good? All right, we'll look forward for next week.
All right, thank you very much. That's those are the 4 items that I had for you this morning. So appreciate you giving us your time.
You bet. All right, so next item of business is Sheriff is making a request for CARES funding, and Gina has sent out the actual written documentation that describes the nature of the request. And so
here he comes. Here comes Carrie too.
we have Carrie. Is somebody from the Sheriff's Office going to be joining us? And we have Todd. Okay. Welcome. Hello.
Did Gina just send that out?
Yeah, Gina, you sent it out this morning, right?
This morning.
Yeah.
Okay, this morning. Okay, thank you.
You're up.
At 9/11.
You are. Oh, there we go. I'll pay attention. Good morning, everyone. I'm Todd Mielke with the Sheriff's Office. We've been going through a number of items to determine whether any of these would apply to CARES Act funding. Earlier, I think I spoke to each of the commissioners about respirators. We have pulled back on that request. We think that request is addressed in an earlier line item supplemental with regard to gas masks / respirators. And so I want to make sure that we don't cross any lines with regard to supplanting on this money. But there is another equipment piece that we think is highly important to the Sheriff's Office, and it seems to have increased in its importance in this year with a number of the protests that we see, and almost as we look at the fall approaching in the next couple of months, we assume that the number of protests may increase and the crowds may increase, especially with the oncoming elections, with Black Lives Matters and some of the other kind of unrest that's going on. So as we approach those situations, the best way for us to be able to protect officers is through the use of face shields instead of face masks. When you get into a crowd situation, you need to be able to give commands. A lot of times it's hard to hear, so you're kind of reading lips as you go. So face masks typically don't work well, a face shield does. So the face shields for these crowd situations are attached to tactical helmets. The tactical helmets that we have right now, we do not have enough for every commissioned officer in the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. The ones that we do have date back to the Vietnam era, and so they are just not practical for a number of reasons. When we first started having protests earlier this summer, we were able to order 15 of them, but this would allow us to make sure that every commissioned officer has one. So when they become an employee of the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, this would be part of their standard issue. Like you are issued, you know, a sidearm, you're issued a shotgun if you're out in the field, you would be issued a tactical helmet as well, and it would include the shield. Again, that allows us to protect against COVID exposure, but also allows us to protect against anything thrown in those type of situations as well. So this is an item that you may see for other reasons, I would say in a couple years, but in the case of COVID, the face shield becomes an integral part of providing that protection. The breakout with carry on this, the breakout amount of $150,500 does include sales tax. That is significant. But by the time you do the helmet, the time you do the face shield, and there's a carrying bag, you are at $459 and some cents per unit, and then we added the sales tax on top of that to get the amount. I've tried to not be too repetitive of what's in the summary, and perhaps the summary gives you a little bit more detail about what I just covered, but I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Todd?
Just to clarify, it's you're going to be ordering 300 units.
Correct. So we have just under 250 commissioned officers. We have 243, and that includes the 14, now 18 pool positions. This would allow approximately 50 extra units just to recognize every once in a while defective or equipment breakages. But also as we rotate staff, these are one of those pieces of equipment that is sized for the individual. So as we rotate staff, there's a chance that our ratio of large versus medium versus extra large and smalls will change. So it allows us a little bit of extra units to be able to adjust for that as people retire, as they leave, as people come on.
Okay.
Indeed, Josh?
Is Carrie in the room?
Yes, she is.
Yes.
You can't see me, but I'm here.
Okay, and I just want to
I'm
confirm you're
invisible.
okay. Just want to confirm that in your opinion, that this qualifies. No
Yes.
concerns there.
Yes, it would qualify.
Sounds good.
So unless there are any other questions, chair's open to a motion.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move to approve and authorize the expenditures of up to $150,500 of CARES dollars to accommodate the Spokane County Sheriff's Office request for the purchase of the face shields and tactical helmets request as presented by Todd Melke.
I will second that.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion passed unanimously. Very good. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, so next item of business. No,
Was there any more for me?
no, you're good.
Cool. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
We're into FEMA now. We're in FEMA now.
The ejection button, Commissioner, the ejection button.
Where is that? It's under here somewhere.
See you, Todd.
Okay. Gary, you're up.
Commissioners, I just kind of wanted to update you this morning about what I've heard from FEMA. Our project manager at FEMA notified me last week that the federal agency has determined that unless it's first responders and costs that were associated with first responders, they will not be approving any request other than those that are submitted on behalf of first responders. So what that means to Spokane County is that the only ones we'll be able to file on from FEMA are EOC costs, the sheriff costs. Our project manager believes also that it would be the jail costs. So we're talking PPE and sanitation. So currently, our costs are about $2.5 million that we've expended all over all departments in the county. So what I met with budget office staff last week, and we'll be providing you further information to move all of those costs that we couldn't bill to FEMA at this point, and then come back to you and ask for approval to move CARES money to cover all of those costs associated that were ESUP to COVID expenses. I don't have the exact amounts. I just kind of wanted to bring you guys up to speed about where they are on FEMA. My office is currently billing FEMA right now for those expenses that are related to first responders. So I'll have a better idea as we're going through probably within the next couple of weeks to be able to come back. But I also wanted to, move that money out of the CARES bucket over with your permission, so that also we can update our, running total about how much money you guys have. So unfortunately, they've made that decision, so it doesn't cover every department. It only covers those that are considered first responders.
So we got a request to cover the cost for Fire District 4 volunteers. So would that cost be covered under the FEMA then request then?
Yes.
So that's not a cost that's going to come to us through CARES?
No, Commissioner, I have probably 5 that are coming through.
Okay.
We have Fire District 4, 9, and 10, and that was based when Ed and I came in and presented to you. That was the initial EOC cost.
Right.
So we're billing most of that to FEMA. The only thing that won't be covered is 25% of that.
Okay.
And that will be CARES dollars, but the bulk of those expenses will be billed to FEMA, and we're working on that right now through my office.
So just kind of a gut feeling, not going to hold you to anything. We're not recording or nothing.
No injection button?
Out of that 2.5, how much of that do you think is going to be legitimate, and how much of it do you think we're going to end up picking up? Ballpark, not round numbers.
I'm thinking of over $1 million is associated with the sheriff's office, right? So probably, I'm saying maybe ballpark about 1.5, including your 25%.
Okay.
That will be CARES associated with the county.
All right.
Because part of that too includes sheriff's costs that we filed the supplemental JAG grants. We'll have contracts with the valley and with the city to cover some of those expenses as well. So it's kind of a moving target, but let's just throw out maybe 1.5.
Okay. So out of the CARES funding, out of that 2.5, 1.5 will come from CARES, 1 million will come from FEMA.
Probably around there.
Plus or minus. Okay.
And no ejection button.
Yeah. No. Got it. No.
All right.
Mary?
So Carrie, you were saying, so the 20% match that we do with FEMA are you saying that CARES dollars can be used for that?
Yes. Oh,
okay.
Yes.
Is that's new, right? Because I think we didn't think we could, because it was federal dollars with federal dollars.
It never has been before. This money is, this is a very unusual situation, but they came out in writing and indicated that we can use CARES money to match the 25%. Because typically, in most FEMA cases, it's only usually been 12.5 that the local government has had to pick up, with the other 12.5 by the state. But because the state wasn't picking any of it up, I think that's when Treasury decided to assist all the communities that got that money to be able to cover their funding. Because typically you can't match federal with federal,
Right. No, that's why I was curious. That was the first I was hearing that we could do that.
It's in writing, Commissioner, and that's all I care about.
Exactly.
Josh?
Yeah, so just so I understand what you led off with. So you said, so FEMA won't cover anything that is not related to the first responders?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And
so all of our departments, Commissioner, when the assessor's office, the auditor's office, any place that we were ESUP subbing, those codes to cost. So right now, I think my last one was run about a week and a half ago, and it was $2.5 million that all the departments had spent. And that included all of the first responder, the EOC cost, which I believe, and don't hold me to it, about $1 million, I think, is what we incurred on the EOC. So those costs, the EOC, the sheriff's cost, she believed that the jail's cost also for PPE and sanitation would be considered first response. So we're gonna pull together all of those, but the rest will not be covered.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just kind of wanted to give you a heads up before I come back in with other documents to really give you that final total.
Okay. Any other questions for Carrie on this one? Okay. Any other updates, Carrie, or anything about?
No.
You
Thank
sure?
you for the Monday update on the running total that we've been keeping really good track of those, that we've been improving
Well,
especially
and
the
I need to get another one out to the commissioners because I just put in some from GSI. So I try not to send them to you every day to bother you, but I kind of want you guys to know where we are on some of those costs and what's been billed and what's been approved.
Okay.
They're very helpful.
By the time the spokesman article came out, it was off $1 million or $2 million.
Okay.
But pretty close when you're talking $60 million.
Yeah.
So the conversation, so before you leave, Carrie, I'm gonna raise another issue. So before we get the representative from the school district here, which there's
running way early.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with the chair. Want to talk about two different things. We've got miscellaneous matters here to try and fill in some time, and so I'm gonna raise an opportunity, and I'm not sure where I'm at on this yet, but I thought it's worthy of a conversation for us to have as it relates to the CARES funding. And I'm thinking particularly as it relates to PP&Es and things like that. And I'm going to circle back to the request from Whitworth and Gonzaga on their funding request. If their funding request, and you looked at it, Carrie, in terms of the detail, their funding request included PP&Es and those kind of things that we have generally provided to the public to try and subdue the spread of the infection and stuff. And so what I'm wondering is, why would we not provide that same level of protection for the students either at Whitworth or Gonzaga, or for that matter, Eastern and Wazoo, because what I'm thinking about is how they impact our infection rate and how they impact our ability to get the community infection rate down and stuff. So it really has nothing to do with as much the universities as it does congregations of individuals that could transmit the disease if not for adequate PP&Es. So I'm wondering whether that is worthy of consideration for us or not. I just throw it out for your consideration. It really doesn't have anything to do with the universities themselves, other than they are a point of congregation kind of a deal. So what are your thoughts? Anybody?
Commissioners, they had on their request, they had PPE, cleaning, and incremental custodial services as all one category.
Right.
And their request for those two was somewhere in the neighborhood of $480,000.
Okay.
So they didn't break it out to just PPE,
Right.
unfortunately, but it was for cleaning and all of that as well.
Okay. Okay.
Carrie, in that request, was that just for through the end of the year?
Yes, I believe. I don't know that they had anything, time frame. I'm trying to think. Do you remember time
I don't
frame?
recall it.
I don't think they had a time frame in here, Commissioner.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
don't
asked-
remember timeframes in there either.
I asked that just because, with some of the school districts, most of them, I was trying to be very clear that it was through the end of the year. But I think I have one request that's probably, for the whole school year instead of just the end of the year. And so I think, I just want to make sure that we clarify that,
Right.
with them, that it has to be expended by the end of the year.
I'm looking at their proposal and it really didn't have a time frame listed, like, their understanding that the money would end on December 30th, that they had to be spent by December 30th. It didn't really cover a time frame at all in their proposal.
Okay, so that I would just want to clarify that, but I think it's interesting, even getting the school district's requests that some of them had PPE, some didn't. Some of the districts are coming back, some aren't. Some are, even the ones that aren't coming back, they've got special ed and preschool. Some are doing K-2. So there is definitely a need out there. I know we talked about it at one of the superintendent's meetings, that I think East Valley was having issues even purchasing some of it, that, maybe they could use some of ours, until they could get it in. So I don't know. I think it's, I'd be willing, we're going to be looking at it kind of across, all areas, because it's, it's definitely going to be an issue. I mean, and, I'm, concerned. I mean, we're seeing what's happening down at WSU when they're not even on campus, let alone, as people start to come back on campus. So.
Well, the Wazoo experience is one of the things that caused me to rethink this and stuff, because it's now affecting the entire county with their numbers and stuff. And obviously we've got a vested interest in, trying to suppress this thing and stuff. So, and I'm not even sure that giving them the money is the best route to achieve the goal. I mean, Tony's done some incredible things about acquiring PP&Es, and maybe what we do is we go out and we buy whatever number it is internally and just give it to them, kind of a deal. So, and so I'm not locked into a specific outcome. I just think that their success is probably our success in terms of the suppression countywide. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that was one of the things when when I talked to Rebecca from the spokesman, she called a couple weeks ago about their request, and I had said, my concern with the overall ask was it was recreating certain things that we'd already paid for, like the contact tracing and isolation facility. I said, but when it comes to things like PPE, that's something that, that's definitely CARES eligible. If it's something where we would purchase for them, or even if it's just providing assistance with connecting them with Tony to make that connection to those providers, I definitely be willing to look at PPE if that's where their ask is. I mean, because we've done that for small businesses, we've done that for the community. So PPE is a different story, and so I'd be willing to look at PPE for just about anybody that comes and asks for it. So because and you make a great point, Commissioner French. I mean, that's a benefit to everyone throughout the community, not just the entity that it would be provided to.
Yeah. So if you two are okay, then maybe we can ask Jerry to revisit with the two universities and also reach out to Wazoo and Cheney. So if we're going to do something, I think it's got to be for all four of the universities, not just two that asked, kind of a deal, because the infection rate in Cheney is going to affect the county. whenever they reconvene and stuff. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
and unless, of course, it has the WSU Spokane branch and has Eastern. I mean, do they have some agreement with the state? Is the state providing them with masks? And I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know either and stuff. That's why I was going to ask Jerry to do some follow up on it and find out. I know that both of the universities all the universities are financially challenged right now. So, if this helps the community and the side effect is it helps the university, then, that's great. But our real goal is keeping the community healthy and safe. So why not? So anyway, thanks for the conversation and stuff. So we'll ask Jerry to reach out and then we'll tee this up for, if you think we could do this by 11. No, by Monday.
I was going to say, which day by 11? Yeah, the 11th. Wow. At 11. We can get it done for next week.
Okay, so we'll revisit it on Monday of next week. So
we'll do it Tuesday.
Do either one of you have any miscellaneous items you want to bring up at this time? Otherwise, I've got a couple that I want to bring forward.
Any update on the Sea Pacer ask that we got from BOMA, the program about the historic buildings? And
that's one of the miscellaneous items I had, and so the documents have been delivered to Mr. Kaufman, and he is in the process of reviewing them. And he said that he'd have them done by this afternoon.
The last part wasn't quite correct, but actually, Eric Mackinson, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he and I have been in contact. I've read through the statute 2 or 3 times. There's some provisions there that I'm just not sure about, and I want to talk to him about some of that and get back to you on that. He sent some documents, but there'll probably be a few changes necessary in those. So I'm hoping to hear from him. I heard from him Friday by an email, and I told him to call me either late today or early tomorrow and set up a time for. He wants. I think they've got a lawyer and another guy that wants to talk to me.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Just wanted to make sure it didn't get lost in the shuffle with everything else going on.
Made a point of securing the documents last week and passed them on to Jim, and so he's doing his voodoo.
All right.
So, do either one of you have any concerns or objections to the presentation? Because I know that they presented to each one of us individually and stuff. So I don't have any concerns, and it doesn't look like either one of you do. So as soon as Kaufman is done with it, we can bring forward a resolution. We'll go ahead and do that.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, and then I wanted to check on where we were on the gambling tax, just because I make sure we get that done before the next payment. The next.
Right.
Due date.
I've got drafted a proposed change that will basically repeal all 7.32. Gina and I've talked a little bit. One concern I have is since it's getting rid of a code section, we have to have a public hearing. And when I'm going to set that up, in fact, hopefully today or tomorrow, you can sign an order setting a hearing. The problem we have right now is just which date to have it, because it would normally be something, since it's a code thing, that you probably put on an evening hearing. But my understanding is that, that we don't have that. On the other hand, when I was looking over the weekend, I believe the current OPMA executive order expires tomorrow night. So
Extended.
I think it will be, but yeah. So that's kind of, it's just a question of when to put the hearing and which date.
It'll be extended until November 5th.
That's right. I think you're probably right. We won't know that until probably tomorrow or Wednesday.
I can't believe I said that out loud. Okay.
Al, it's not the first time you've made a comment like that out loud.
So then I guess the question is do we just defer it for a year and then have the public hearing next year to do away with it?
I thought
I think those that care about this will make a point to call in.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. I
just want to get it done. So just
before the quarter due is to get it done.
Yeah, the quarter's not done until September 30th, right?
correct.
We should have no trouble doing it in September. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
And then wanted to see, we were supposed to have them come back, the Sparber, to talk about the booking area. And he hasn't, I talked to him, but, they haven't been back to talk to us. And so I think we need to make sure we get that, to keep that moving.
Yeah, he sent an intake today at 8:51. This is their conceptual drawing of the intake and release facility and location. And he's asking Kelsey and Maggie to feel free to add the interior design so Bruce can get the ball rolling. I can certainly bring him in either later today, because we have miscellaneous that starts at 3:30, or I can tee him up for miscellaneous Tuesday. What would be your pleasure, board members?
Well, let's deal with it today.
Okay, I'll have him come over then.
Okay. I do have to be today. I've got to be out by 4:15. So
If I bring him in right at 3:30, he'll be out of here before 4.
okay.
Okay.
Don, could you help me with that? Thanks.
So we're doing the mitigation funds grant, disbursements up at the Spokane tribe that Spokane County was a recipient. The sheriff's office got, I believe, $80.
Yes.
So that's what's on the 2 o'clock agenda tomorrow, is accepting that, but they're doing the disbursements tonight at 5.
Where?
Up at the casino.
Oh. Okay. I didn't hear about that. Okay.
I didn't either. What's that about?
So that's the committee that you guys had me on. That's the mitigation funds that they have to give away.
Guild
funds.
I don't know what they're called exactly, but there was about 300,000 that were given away to about 6 entities.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anything else on the miscellaneous? So
I saw they named the Sportsplex the Podium.
Right.
That was news over the weekend. So
interesting name.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about in the past, and it's kind of gotten high centered and wanted to come back and revisit it, is getting e-signatures in place so that we're not having to constantly wear out a wrist. Do you know where we're at with regard to getting that in place?
What we can do, Commissioner French, is bring Ken Moore. I just had a discussion last week on the whole strategy, but we can get him in here quite quickly to update you on that and the board.
Okay.
He's been the project manager. I know they've been working on it.
Okay. Got it.
Mary, when was the last time you signed a document?
I know. Well, I was in the office. I did sign the one, the Space Force one.
Yeah.
I can scan it.
I'm not sure what your point is, Josh.
Okay, I remember making a motion to authorize the use of our stamps like 6 months ago, and I don't even know if I remember how to sign my name.
At some point, we will come out of this. Okay. Let's see.
I have one question when you get there.
I knew you would. Go ahead, Jerry.
I had a Kathleen sent me a text or an email the other day that there's a presentation on the point-in-time homeless count information, which, as you know, is done by the City of Spokane, and it was presented to the Continuum of Care Board last Wednesday. And Tia, who was leading the presentation, if there's any interest by the board, is willing to come and present that information to the Board of County Commissioners. If you folks would be interested, if you are, I will get in touch with Tia and Kathleen. She said that she sent the slide deck to me, and we'll get that scheduled if you would like to see that presentation. I believe you saw it last year, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'll get that, we'll get that set up.
Okay.
Very good.
So just to make sure, and I'm not advocating, I'm just touching bases. Today is the cutoff date for the county to adopt the increase in sales tax for low-income housing. And I know that we decided that we wanted to take a pass on this, but I figured just ask one more time so that we don't have an aha moment tomorrow when the deadline is passed. I think the deadline is today. Wasn't it at the end of August or is it the end of September?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. We haven't changed our mind. Okay, just checking. Then, either one of you have any other miscellaneous items? Josh, Mary, Jerry?
I think, just letting you know that, with the school district, I put together just a spreadsheet of the school districts that have responded, so far. I did.
Did you send that to us?
It was supposed to be scanned and I dropped it off this morning, so it was supposed to be scanned and sent to you.
I don't have it.
Who did you drop it off to, Mary?
Gina
Oh, I
sent it?
scanned it and then I sent it out, and which there should be a hand copy.
Oh.
Is it at the Josh? It's in our packet.
Yep. I got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Yep. It came at 8:09 this morning.
So it's
Yep.
I looked at the request and I looked at if we prorated just a flat amount, which I'm not really interested in prorating. It's just a couple of ways to look at it and give us some talking points to look at. You're going to see, some districts haven't responded yet. I'm still getting emails. As we were speaking to them, getting some emails this morning. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys so you guys have it. There's nothing magical about the proration or $3 million. I just did it just to see what, based on students, when the city of Spokane Valley distributed some of their funds, I mean, I think East Valley got like 30, West Valley 30, and Central Valley got a little bit more than that, 30,000. So, they did it kind of based on students. And so a couple of the superintendents I talked to was, kind of asked about that. But you can see some of the smaller districts, they have needs that they wouldn't have, if we did it prorated. I will tell you, Freeman is a school district that I think did it annualized. So the 250,000, I think, would probably be about 100,000 versus the 250, because they were looking at it for the full year. So just that's kind of my comments on that for you guys to take a look at before our 10:30 meeting.
So Mary, these are the actual dollar amounts they asked for?
Correct.
Okay, so okay.
So on the request, where it says request.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, so the blank ones, then that, okay. So we don't have a request from Meade, Medical Lake, Newport, any of those?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So.
Do they know that we're open to request?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was pretty, I was on the phone with them on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and I think it's just pretty tight timing. And so I think we'll get requests. And I know like Central Valley and District 81, they didn't put in a request for food at this point in time because they're still trying to figure out what that's going to be. I think they're just, to be honest, they're all slammed right now trying to figure out what they're doing in schools and how they're, getting their, right now, a lot of the teachers are being trained on the new online platforms and all of that. So I think it's just a very busy time. And so I think we'll be able to, we'll get more requests. I think we have to figure out how much we want to allocate. And, that would be my thought. And I'm going to say, so I was out at Fairchild at the civic leader call with the General Webb and civic leaders across the country. And as we went around to each of the bases, it was definitely, and I think Tim Ames will be able to talk to it. I mean, there's concern and I think it's for any working family, what do we do? And so I think that's why that's going to be, in my mind, a priority is how do we help get these day camps, going, and how do we help with that so we get these working families working instead of feeling like they have to stay home. I know Fairchild's worried about missions if they have, one parent who's an airman who's divorced and they've got another parent that's, can't take the kids full time. So that's why these day camps are going to be really, we're seeing them, fill up, I think, with District 81 and other places that, we just want to make sure we're helping. That's how we can help the economy, is getting these parents working, keeping them working.
Mhm.
Airmen are across the county. They're not just in Medical Lake. I mean, predominantly they have a larger population of them, but all the school districts have airmen at them. So
Yeah, no, Mary, you've reminded me of something. So I spoke with a parent of a child that's in Spokane Public Schools, and it's a mother in that district, and she told the story, her story of how this is impacting her. Her husband is in the military. He's being sent somewhere, deployed somewhere in September. He's going to be gone for 2 months. I think it has to do with the hurricanes down south. And so for 2 months, she's going to be the one here with her two kids, and she's employed, but the amount of money she makes per hour is only like $2 more than what it would cost for a babysitter to watch her kids. So she's quitting her job so she can stay home with her kids so they can sit in front of a laptop and go to school. And so that's somebody that no longer is employed now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, and what she says, this decision was made for me. She's like, I didn't get to make this decision. The school district made this decision for me. And it's really sad when you think about that. I mean, it's like, this is somebody that wants to work, that was employed and has to quit their job now to do this. So, and yeah, I mean, like you said, and it's, the husband's in the military and he's got to go serve his country. So it's a terrible situation all around.
You don't have to go too far, because I mean, that's the same situation that I'm in, Josh. My wife's likely going to lose her job because of schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
Well, and that's why I think the more that we can try to figure out and help these day camps, set us, because all the schools are kind of scrambling to do that. I know, that's why, I think that's one of the things we can really do to help our community. Because
and in the District 81 day camps, though, did you get a chance to read the article in the Spokane? They're pretty much full, except for a few spots on the north side. So if you live on the south side, there's nothing near you. You've got to travel across town, and I'm sure, who knows, by now those might be full. Now that that it was advertised in that article that there were still some openings, those may be all full by now. So,
well, and the ones that paid could afford the tuition are not the ones in the northeast part of town that are predominantly low and moderate incomes. So they're the ones that are hanging out, and you're probably going to see more of them having to, quit work and go on unemployment to be able to take care of the kids. I mean, did you have a chance to read the email and the summary of the meeting I had with the group of parents from both the Spokane Public Schools? And they said, shoot, if you're going to spend this kind of money, give it to the school districts so they can open up. And he says, to pay more money to school districts so they can be closed and push that burden onto us is, why would you do that? So, it's an interesting conundrum. And so do these numbers include the cost of day camps?
Yes, I think for Central Valley and District 81 it does. Because I think you got the list from them. Josh sent it last week. And I think that's part of it is helping figure out. I know for Central Valley it's for the day camps for and internet, you know, that all of them are talking about the internet situation. I mean, that's where most of it is going. But I think District 81's, trying to find it. Theirs were for helping students, you know, with the day camps. And it's basically based on scholarship. District 81's doing it based on scholarship need.
You know, Commissioner French, I got a recommendation from an individual, kind of that it was a thought that they floated when I was discussing the request of that Spokane Public Schools had asked for about the day camps, and they said, you know, one of the proven most effective ways, you know, for quality learning for a student is to, you know, to have a teacher in the room with them. And they said, you know, why don't you guys at the county look at funding tutors that would be at those day camps in the classrooms that would be willing to work with the students?
I think that, and we can ask, I mean, that's why I wanted to kind of have this pre-discussion. We can ask the superintendents, but I think they're trying to get more educators in, you know, because they can't get certified teachers in those day camps because they're not a classroom setting, but I think they're trying to get para educators in there. So it's somebody who's got more ability to help the kids.
Okay.
Okay, so so based upon this spreadsheet, Mary, the 1.751 is the number then?
Those are the requests to date, but I know that, like I said, the one from Freeman, I believe is inflated because I think that's for the full year. I think the rest of them are just looking at it for this year, you know, just through the end of the year. And then again, you know, for the schools that are not going to be open, you know, those don't include trying to help with food services because that's going to be a need that's going to be out there with the USDA not giving the allowance that they gave in the spring where they could just do the meals. USDA paid for it, and you know they could offer those meals at these different locations. What they're going to do now is, if USDA does not allow for it, which they're not at this point, they're only paying for free and reduced. And so my suggestion would be to help fund part of the gap, because what you don't want to have is that stigma of that, you know, you go to a site to pick up a meal and they have to look on the list and go, okay, you've got to pay a little bit more because you don't have the cards like they do in the school system. So I don't know. So that's my thought, is that's why I put you know, a couple of them didn't have food in it. Some of them did. And, you know, it's just one of those that I'd rather make sure kids are getting fed and not having to have the stigma of who's free, who's reduced, and who has to pay. You know, when I don't know if you guys saw any of those locations, but they would just have like buses go out to different locations and they'd have you know, volunteers at a table, you know, handing up. So, and I'll tell you, as an auditor, having a cash box sit there with those people would not be putting them in jeopardy. And the audit of cash and all of that is just not a good situation. So, so anyway, so those are the two things that I think are really important, is how do we keep our working families working and food. And then, you know, as you're seeing, there's a lot of internet, you know, but the cost for internet stuff is not all that much, you know, as you look at it. And that's what some of these smaller districts are. And I think, again, they didn't have time to do full ass, you know, so I think there's more need than showing on this list. But what I wanted to show on the other side is that I don't really like the prorated side. I think I'd rather just have them come and ask and let us determine that ask. And if we want to wait till we have everybody, you know, one more week, I mean, we can do that, but I think they need to know if we're going to be able to help fund some of those day camps. And that way then parents aren't doing it and we're getting people back to work.
So if we're going to be looking at more requests, what is it about the proration that you don't like, Mary?
Because I think, you know, you look at Freeman, for example, if we prorate it, they only get like $34,000. Their needs are, I think, I would say based on what I saw, I would say 100,000 is what they're really asking for. You look at, there was another small one, Reardon Edwald that was trying to look for, so there's 600 students, 2/3 of their students are in Spokane County, 1/3 are in Lincoln County. They'd only get 22,000, but they haven't asked for 111,000. So, and again, they all know it's on reimbursement basis. They got to show the costs. A lot of them, what they're trying to do for technology is hotspots and trying to have buses be those hotspots. It'll be interesting to talk to Tim as to what he's doing, because he's trying to run his buses to actually pick up kids to bring into the day camps. And then I think some of these schools are trying to have a bus that can go out to an area with a hotspot to then have the kids, help. So we're all trying to be very creative, and that's why I think they all have different needs and different asks. So, and one that came in this morning was 9 Mile Falls. They weren't sure what all to ask for, but so they were asking for a minimum of $10,000 for internet. Because it's everybody's having to purchase these little hotspots is what's happening.
Well, I would say the other thing too, when you look at the prorated, I mean, the perfect example, District 81, Spokane Public Schools. I mean, if we committed to giving them prorated amount, I mean, that's twice what they're asking for. I mean, if they only need 618, the prorated would get them almost 1.2 million. So it's like, I mean, I think in the long run, even if all the districts come in with a request, I think it's going to be less than the 3 million that's in that prorated ask.
Right, and it's going to depend on food. I think food's going to be a big chunk on these big districts. Mm-hmm. That will, definitely bump it up. Yeah. So, and like I said, I just used 3 million as an example for the proration, just so we could see how that would filter out. Okay. That was just, I mean, we may need to go 5, we may need, we're going to be less, maybe you guys are going to say no to some of it, or we will say no to some of it.
Yeah, maybe you'll say no, Mary.
Maybe I will. Like I said, for Freeman, I know it's already going to be less than the 250. But I think, I'd rather have them ask for what they really need and what we can help with, to get students so they're learning, so they're not getting further behind. I know they will tell you they will want to be open, and it's probably costing, I mean, we'll ask the superintendents, but I think it's costing them more money to not be open and to do all of this virtual than it is if they were open, because they're trying to help coordinate all these other things to help facilitate learning for the kids. And our health officer is, not wanting, and it's North Tri-County is in better shape than we are, and they're not opening. I mean, their districts are not. We're probably going to see Whitman County here pretty soon. I thought that Pullman opened up on a hybrid. I'm not sure, but I mean, with what's going on in their community, they're probably going to have to shut down. So, I mean, that's what, and there's concern that with Meade and East Valley and Deer Park opening up, that, they're going to have to shut down, and then that's going to harm everybody else's chances of opening. Because they've been pretty creative, the ones, trying to get, like Freeman's getting K-2 back, because it's kind of carved out in the state and our health officer, where you can do special ed, early learners, and have them come back in a modified manner. So, I mean, they're groups of 10, so they're not having groups, the full class sizes, to try to get, facilitate that. And I think Central Valley is going to have their preschool, and then they're looking to, and I know West Valley too, hoping to, start with K-2 and then roll forward to 3-4 and then 5-6, but we've got to get our numbers down for them to really be able to do all that. So it's frustrating for everybody. I can tell you, talking to the superintendents, it's frustrating. And then listening online with the civic leaders, you know, listening to, you know, because some places across the country are opening up, others aren't. They're virtual and they're having the same issues we are. And, you know, so definitely the general was asking what we could do in the community to help. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we convene with our guest at 10:30? Okay. So unless you've got any other miscellaneous items, why don't we recess until 10:30 and just take a break before we engage with the school superintendents. Okay? So it's now 10:17 and we'll recess until 10:30.
It's just a specific ask that I can't recall in my head what it was.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Other than just a broad.
Exactly.